You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. How is your week going? We're almost at the end of it. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about moments where Steven Avery's mask slips. And thanks to the fact that his girlfriend Jodi was in prison and had her phone calls recorded at the time of Teresa Halbach's murder, and we know that those phone calls were recorded, we have some idea as to what Steven was doing. And very interestingly, the day before Teresa Halbach was killed, October 30th, Steven Avery is in his garage talking to Jodi, looking for the antenna to the police scanner. So why would he need a police scanner? And has this been mischaracterized by so many people as a kind of spontaneous crime on the part, in relation to Brendan Dassey and his role in it? He's always seen as kind of, I just happened to appear here by happenstance. Look what happened. And when I see this woman looking into my eyes, absolutely terrified, restrained, begging for help, I just decide to participate in the crime and not help somebody. And this gives me the first clue that Brendan Dassey's character is a lot darker than the public would care to accept. And anybody who respects evidence would have to look at the end of his interrogation where he says, Steven and I planned this together. So I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, we are going to look at Steven Avery, where the mask slips. Where was he when Jodi made this phone call to him on the night of the murder? Was he in his trailer or was he in the garage? We will take a listen together when I get back from the break. Meet you on the other side. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Okay, so this is from a YouTube channel.
So I'm putting together a couple clips here. Most of you have been fooled by watching Making a Murder and thinking that Steven Avery is innocent. Steven Avery killed Teresa Halbach. This is a conversation with Jodi the night of October 31st, where Steven says that he's inside of his trailer. Steven is not inside his trailer. He's out by the garage, or he's in the garage when this call happens. You're going to see and hear him constantly spitting is because he's got tobacco in his mouth. He's not going to be doing that inside the house. You're going to hear him say he misses working out here. You're going to hear him say, "Oh, she's breathing again." And you're going to hear him say, "Oh, she's gone again." Okay, those statements that you're going to hear have nothing to do with the conversation he has with Jodi. I believe at this time Brennan is in the garage right now cleaning while he's talking on the phone with Jodi. Remember, Brennan has bleach on his jeans. And Steven says that they cleaned up the garage weeks earlier. You're going to hear Steven talk with his brother Earl. Earl says, "Don't you remember you came up around 3:30, 3:45, and said the photographer never showed up?" And Steven denies that.
Yeah, you can hear them putting together their story. They're trying to get their story, Brendan's story and Steven Avery's story. They're all trying to get their story together. And that's Earl's, way of saying, like, I'm not going to lie for you. Don't you remember? That's what I got from it. And if you think that this is a wacky theory, like sort of a wacky YouTube theory, take a listen. Let's look at very quickly. This is from Ken Kratz's book, and he says, perhaps the most evidentiarily relevant, are the calls between Jodi and Steven on the day of the murder itself, October 31st, 2005. At 5:37, after Teresa is either dead, and I'm going to cut some of this out, it's a little graphic, in the cargo area of her Toyota RAV4, or still at the Avery property, Jodi places her regular late afternoon call from the local jail. Sounds of Steven spitting are interrupted with groans and the occasional as if he is pretending to listen, but the most multitasking killer is clearly on autopilot as he continues his conversation with Jodi. As I listen to the call, considering what had just occurred or might still be occurring, I find its casual nature unsettling. Steven talks about his new, quote, big TV, unquote, and having brought his Jeep and snowmobile home from Crivets. And at about 9 p.m., Jodi calls again. Steven, by this time, is preoccupied in the background. A police scanner chirps, undoubtedly to warn Avery in case Teresa is reported missing, and the police begin a search for the photographer. So while Ken Kratz doesn't pick up on these statements that seem to relate to Teresa, he still is pointing out some odd, he's still saying, I don't think he's in his trailer. I think he's in the garage. And I think that they were multitasking, or Avery was. And I think if you listen closely, it sounds like, and this is one of these things where you have to question what you're hearing. It sounds like you can hear Brendan Dassey in the background, but is that from my suggestion, you listen and you tell me what you hear. All right. Let's listen to the rest of this.
And you're also going to hear Brendan say that he helped Steven clean up in the garage. And everything that Brendan says fits perfectly into this timeline. I believe after Steven gets off the phone with Jodi is when they take Teresa and they put her in the fire. You watch and you decide.
What did I say? I love all my life. Is this the first time it rained? No. It rained before? Yeah. I don't know. But you were on it. I said, damn, I gotta hurry up, get to the front of the house. Oh.
So he's like, he just says there, I have to get to the front of the house. It seems like he's talking to someone else there. Not Jodi. It has nothing to do with her conversation.
Well, I'm just walking out here. Did you call Shannon or no? No. Oh, maybe I'll do that later. Because tell her too, if it'll help things make things look better or whatever, I'll be willing to go on that rope program. What rope program? Some program they have where you got that curfew I was telling you about. A curfew? Yeah. Or whatever. I don't know, I'd have to ask her what it is. Oh, you ask her if she can do anything to get you at home.
Right there, you hear his criminal sophistication. Now, I don't know if he's talking about a family member or a lawyer, but he's saying, you got to talk to them. Oh, you could be part of a program that could get you could be out, but you would just have a curfew. Talk. And it seems like he's saying, talk to your lawyer or talk to a family member. They'll do anything to get you home. He knows how he's been through the system so many times. He knows how it works.
I don't know. My picture's still up there? Yeah. Hello? Of course it is. What is it else going to be? I don't know. I thought maybe your mom took it down. No, she didn't take the picture down. Because of my big boobs? No. I don't know, Chucky looked at them. No, really? Yeah, Brian's seen them.
And this is, of course, I don't know, a very Avery family talking about her, her body parts, and Earl's looked at them. And given what we know from what Convicting a Murderer talks about, which is that Avery instructed his brother to sleep with his wife while he was in prison. And they started up something. It seems like that is part of his thing, is that he you can hear him.
He grabbed his knife. On the picture? No. When he was walking, looking at it. On the picture? Yeah, when he looked at the picture. They were in their black outfit. Oh, she's leaving again. What black outfit? My swimsuit? Yeah, it could be.
Did you hear that? To my ear, it sounds like, oh, she's bleeding again. I mean, this is really, we're getting into the territory of psychopathy. And for everyone else who thinks that Steven Avery is adorable and not dangerous, listen up. I mean, he is perfect. I mean, our imaginations can take us to the scene of what's happening and what he just did. And this is his tone.
Yeah, it's my
Your pants, my shorts, my big
No, it don't. It goes from the waist up.
Is there a black string around my neck?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, that's up north, huh?
Yeah.
That's probably my... You got a picture like that at home, right?
I think so. Yeah.
That's my swimsuit, my boob shorts.
Yeah, she's gone again.
I don't want a Dr. Pepper.
Now she's gone again? If there is context that I'm missing to this, let me know. But it reminded me of Michael Peterson. When he was asked if he killed his wife, he said, "I would never hurt my wife." And you often hear that as a response. So he's not being asked if he hurt his wife. He's being asked if he killed his wife. And his response was, I would never hurt my wife. Same thing here. Avery is doing here. She's gone again. So if I would have to guess, I would think that Avery is tracking her coming in and out of consciousness. It's so awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one tasted watered down.
Let's see, what time on 20th, Al?
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll take you there. I'll call her tonight so she can talk to you. I'll leave it on her answer machine. It don't make a difference with time. This is no tougher than her.
So he had a lot of stuff to do that night.
Because she was in there when it all happened. No. I wish she was out. Maybe this wouldn't happen, maybe. Huh? What they got against me? All the fucking evidence they got against you. Like what? Everything. And then you got Bob here. And Bob pulls into the driveway when we were rabbit hunting that night. Yeah? Yeah. And then Chuck hollers to you and asks you if that photographer came yet. And you said no. If what? Like at 3:30 or 3:45. I wasn't even there. Huh? I wasn't even up there. What do you mean? I was at home. No. I sure was. No, because I was in the loader. You guys were standing outside here. Not on Monday. Huh? Not on Monday. Yeah. No. I quit at 11 o'clock. Right. Yeah. But then you came back up here. At supper time. Huh? At supper time. No.
Listen to Avery's bullying of his brother. He's like, oh no, I'm going to deny all of it. And his brother, it sounds like a little bit in the beginning, he's like, look, the case against you is really overwhelming, dude. Maybe think about, that's what he's saying with not saying it. Think about maybe making it a deal, pleading guilty. I don't know what, something along those lines. You would think. But Steven Avery is just bullying his brother through this. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I'm the leader of this family, right? You will obey me. And he really did have a lot of influence over the family. Also because he was the one supposed to be getting this big settlement. And big. And you know, that also would up his status in the family.
This is when Bob came. No. Huh? No. No, I never came up. I never came up. I stayed home. Brendan was with him until 10:30 that night. Yeah. Barbara said it. Barbara said it? Yeah, because I was... Brendan said he was with Steven until 10:30 at night. I didn't come back up there till it was...
So this is Brendan Dassey.
The pants that I wore that night. Oh, well.
I mean, does this sound like a naive kid or a more criminally sophisticated budding psychopath to you? Because I hear the latter.
So you actually admitted to it or no? Not really. I admitted that there was a fire in it. I helped Steven to the fan seat, the wood, and some tires and a cabinet on there. That's it. At 5 o'clock or about that, my mom came home and I talked to her. And she said she had to leave to go to the hospital with Scott. And then after that, I waited. I watched TV until about 6 o'clock and got...
Did you catch that? He said, I waited. What was he waiting for? Was he waiting for the time that their plan would take into effect? Was he waiting for Teresa? Did you guys catch that? I waited. And then he switched it up to I watched TV. But he was waiting for something.
A phone call from Blaine's boss, Mike Cornelli, and after that I watched TV until 7, and Steven called. He asked me if I wanted to come over to the bonfire, so I told him I would, and I did, and then he told me that I was gonna help him clean up the yard. So we did, and we picked up fan seat, wood, and some tires for the fire. And we picked that stuff up, and then we brought it to the fire. Then we threw some of it on, and we went into the garage, and there was a puddle on the floor of some reddish black stuff, but I didn't know what it was from.
Right. So he doesn't know what that reddish black stuff is, but he feels he should note it. He feels he should talk about it. He knows what it is. He's playing with people. He knows what that is. I mean, come on. I'm just asking for the people out there that really believe that Brendan Dassey was totally manipulated into this and not dangerous. Would you have him babysit your dog, your cat, your child? Let me know in the comments.
But it was like, I don't know, it was like probably 5 feet by 5 feet puddle or something. And so I cleaned it up with some old rags, and they threw the stuff in the fire after that, and then I waited, we sat there watching the fire, and then we threw some of the stuff on, and my mom came home at 9. Then she went to the house and called Steven on his cell phone to tell him that I was supposed to be home at 10 o'clock, and I had a sweater on. And so we waited for the fire to go down, and then he told me to go home to get some sleep for school the next day.
Yeah, what if he's guilty? He told me to go home because he knows that it makes him look better to put Steven in the power position in this. And it sounds like he's telling every bit of the story with Teresa Halbach removed from it. Everything that they did, everywhere they went, or some of the places that they went, without mentioning Teresa Halbach. I thought that was very interesting. I thought this was really a phone call where you really understand the depth and the darkness and how deranged Steven Avery and Brendan Dassey are. Because they're not sweating through this. They have their police scanner going in the background. They planned this together, I think. And that's what Brendan says. So I don't understand how he would add that detail because he thinks it would benefit him. This is a very criminally sophisticated family. I'm going to take one little break, and I'll meet you on the other side. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. All right, so there's one other thing I wanted to look at or begin to look at, which is also Steven Avery. So Brendan Dassey became a massive problem for Steven Avery with the fact that he confirmed not only so much about what was done that night and the criminality that the murder that they both participated in, but also I think Steven Avery was fully prepared to say, oh no, everybody has it wrong. This bonfire never happened on this night. And by proof, I present you this video. So this is a compilation of the different stories he told that night. And let's get into it. And I'm going to read it for those, you can read along with me, for those on YouTube, and for those listening on podcasts, I'll read it out loud. So it says, Steven Avery, a compilation of his different stories about the bonfire and the night of the 31st of October, 2005. So this is like a slideshow. I spent the evening being by myself. November 5th interview with O'Neill. On Saturday, the 5th of November, Steven Avery was interviewed by Detective Anthony O'Neill of Marinette County Sheriff's Department. Steven was asked about his activities on the 31st of October after Teresa supposedly left. So it says, Steven told us that he stayed in his home, listening to the stereo, going nowhere, up until about supper time. Steven told us that he might have uncertainty, eaten supper that evening at his mother's home, which was his usual practice. And after supper, if he did eat it at his mother's, which is like, it's like, I'm not sure my mother's going to give me an alibi. He returned home awaiting a phone call from Jodi as, quote, Jodi calls me all the time, unquote. Steven said that on that Monday, he had received 2 phone calls made to his house phone from Jodi. He could not recall the times. So Steven left work that day about 11 o'clock for his appointment with Teresa. After she supposedly left about 14 and a half hours, Steven did not return to work, but instead stayed inside his trailer, listening to the stereo. In the evening, he ate supper at his mother's place and spent the remainder of the evening alone in his trailer, waiting for his fiancée, Jodi's phone calls. I guess they're giving everybody a long time to read that. Okay, no mention of having a bonfire with Brendan that night, nor any mention of driving the golf cart with him or cleaning a, quote, reddish... I went a little too far. Sorry, guys. Did I go forward to pass that back? Hold on. Okay. Steven left work at about 11 o'clock. Okay. Steven did not return. And basically, they're talking about the reddish substance here. There's no mention of this reddish substance that Brendan Dassey makes mention of. So no mention of having a bonfire with Brendan that night, nor any mention of driving the golf cart with him or cleaning, quote, a reddish substance in the garage with him. In fact, no mention of Brendan at all. So he was happy to just keep him out of it if he could, because I'm sure he knew what kind of person Brendan was, and that he was happy that he couldn't withstand a interrogation. In one of those phone calls, with Jodi, however, he did say he did some cleaning together with Brendan. Why did he not mention that in his O'Neill interview? So you see him starting to change his story. So this is Jodi to Steven. The statements in a recorded call from Jodi to Steven advising that Brendan was helping cleaning up at Steven Avery's. So he's like admitting it on that call that Brendan's there. The last time I burned anything was 2 weeks ago, quote unquote, November 6th interview with O'Neill and Skorlinski. The following day, Sunday, November 6th. Let me just move back. Investigator O'Neill, now alongside Special Agent Kim Korlinski of the DCI, interviewed Steven again.
Been talking, and he's got probably more questions than I do because he's trying to fill in some stuff as well. So,
and then you were home in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Did you go anywhere else?
No.
During supper time, did you eat alone, or did you eat with your mom?
I think I ate up by Ma's house. Because a lot of times I eat supper by Ma's house. Pretty much time.
So you think you may have eaten supper at Mom's house?
Yeah.
Okay, what'd you do after supper then?
I mostly was home all night.
And you went back home?
Yeah.
Do you recall going anywhere?
No, because Jodi calls me all the time.
Okay, you're either home or over at your mom's for a while, like for supper.
That he may have eaten at his mother's house. He spent the rest of the evening waiting for Jodi's call when Skorlinski, and I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood that was a comment to not to Jodi, but to this officer. When Skorlinski says, quote, you were either home or with your moms for supper, Steven says, yeah. Later during that same interview, O'Neill specifically asked Steven about the burn barrels and when the last time was that he used them. So this is just a document memorializing that conversation. Steven didn't burn any garbage. Steven did burn garbage. Steven says that he hasn't burned anything for 2 weeks. He also says that he does not have a burn pit. Again, no mention of burning tires, a car seat, or whatnot with Brendan. Instead, Steven says he does not have a burn pit. So that is, I think, where I'm going to leave it for today. And I will come back if you're interested in how his story changes. But it goes on. One of the many changing stories of Steven Avery, yet making a murderer paints him as a totally innocent guy. That is where I'm going to end it. Have a great one, everybody.